Phasing can be a little tricky to understand at first because there's a few different places where you need to look to configure its various settings and features. There's really no correct place to start, but starting with the two phasing properties that are available to all model elements is as good a place to start as any. So I'm in a file called phasing properties, and I'm going to configure a few of the settings for some of the objects in this file. I'm going to zoom in over here on the right. So I'm going to select this wall over here, and over on the Properties palette, if you scroll down toward the bottom, there's a phasing grouping, and there are two phase properties, phase created and phase demolished. Now currently, the phase created is new construction, and all I'm going to do is change that to existing. Now when I apply that, I can do that by either clicking the apply button or just simply moving my mouse away from the palette. You're going to see that when I deselect the object, it turns into a light gray. So we're going to talk about the display settings for phasing in a future movie, but essentially what's just happened is Revit recognizes that this object now got created during the existing phase, and so it changes the way it displays to reflect that. So we could repeat this process by selecting some other object, like maybe this wall here, doing the same thing. And again, I can just move away from the Properties palette to apply that. And we're going to see another interesting thing take place here. This wall became existing, but notice that these two windows, which are still set to new construction, actually had to therefore demolish a portion of the wall in order to basically cut a hole. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. If I had an existing wall and then in a new phase came along and added a window, the only way you could add a window to an existing wall is to demolish a hole in that wall. So Revit does that for you automatically, which is kind of nice. Now, if I selected one of these windows and made it existing as well, then you're going to see that demolition disappear. So it automatically kind of takes care of that for you. Now, likewise, if you decide to create some new element, like perhaps I decide to create a door over here, notice that that door will do the same thing. It will demolish a hole to create the opening that it needs in order to receive this new door. Now, what if you want to demolish something that's existing? Let me make one more wall existing here. And then suppose this wall we're going to demolish. Well, there's a couple ways we can do that, but I'm going to start with the Demolish tool. So I'm going to go to the Modify tab, and on the Geometry panel, we have a little Demolish tool here that looks like a hammer. Everybody loves the little hammer, so that's why I'm going to start with that. And I'm going to click on this wall, and you'll see that it changes the way that that wall displays to become a dashed line to represent that it's now demolished. We could do the same thing with this wall. And if you were to demolish an existing wall that has an opening in it, like say this door, notice that it has to also demolish the door. Now notice this demolition looks a little different than this demolition. The reason for that is, if I cancel out of that command and select this wall, this object was actually created and demolished in the same phase. So the representation that Revit's using there is actually temporary construction. It's showing me that we created the object and demolished it in the same phase, and it's using this sort of blue and crosshatched representation instead. The same thing happened with this door, because it was created in new construction, and then when we demolished its host wall, it had to get demolished as well. So this also raises the other way that you can demolish stuff. And that is, you could just simply select the object, and over here on the Properties palette, you can choose the phase that you want to demolish it in. That's also how you can, quote unquote, undemolish things. So if you changed your mind about demolishing this wall, you can simply come over here and change that back to none, and it will restore the object back again. Now, it didn't restore the door automatically, so you'd have to do that separately. So what actually happened here is a new piece of construction, a new infill got placed there, because if you demolish the door, then you probably don't want to leave a hole in the wall, so Revit automatically assumes that you want to infill that. So every model element in Revit has these two phasing parameters, one that controls when the object gets created and another that controls when it's demolished. So by simply configuring these two settings to match the lifespan of the object in question, you apply all the phasing parameters that are necessary in order for the object to display correctly throughout your project.